You also said last night, before you threw it back to the studio, that the Browns have a big decision to sleep on.
Yeah.
They're 33rd overall. Could you imagine, Joel Klatt, if they had drafted Travis Hunter last night instead of trading out of that pick, have the chance to get Shedeur tonight with the first pick tonight?
That would be wild.
It would be just, Cleveland fans would be just going, let's go. We can have the Colorado Browns, the Cleveland Buffaloes right here. But they didn't. They obviously traded out of that spot. First of all, they have 2 picks in the first 4. Would you counsel them to take a quarterback with one of those 2 picks? And if so, who?
They have to answer that position. The question. They have to answer the question.
They got Pickett, right? I understand. And they did get Flacco back, and he won comeback player of the year in 6 weeks.
That's great. But that's not a long-term answer.
But they also have a first-round pick next year. We were talking about how they and the Rams now have a leg up on that draft capital in the quarterback class of next year that everybody says is better than this year. So I'm setting the whole stage here about what you think the Browns should do.
So next year's quarterback class is deeper. Depending on who comes out, I don't know if we're going to have that like elite level player.
All right.
But it is a deeper quarterback class. This one was very thin. I think we would all attest to, right?
Okay.
I really thought the Browns were going to trade back again off of 5, because it's like you started a philosophy of like, hey, let's just build up. We know that we're in a bad position right now with what's gone on with Deshaun, and we're going to take a year or 2 to build ourselves back into a winner. Do you remember when, I know this is a different sport, and I know that it's a different business model, but do you remember when the Houston Astros, like knew that they were just going to be terrible?
Yeah, sure.
But it was like this, we also know that this is the foundation of something that we think is going to be great.
Oh, sure.
Trash cans aside,
nice.
It turned out to be great, right?
Sure.
I mean,
yes.
I live in Los Angeles, so you got to at least acknowledge.
Dodger fans are still talking about it.
Of course they are.
Right.
So I thought that Cleveland might move back again and stockpile and take that type of approach. But I love Mason Graham. I think that the question for tonight is interesting because if he doesn't go in those, if they decide like we're going in a different direction, like where does Shedeur go in the 3rd round?
I don't know. I mean, well,
like what?
You still have Vegas sitting there.
Vegas is sitting there. They probably have a future quarterback question. Pittsburgh maybe said, hey, maybe they know something about Rodgers that we don't. Okay. And that's why they went in their direction at 21. But if they're sitting there at a value spot and they're like, well, even if we get Rodgers, what if we could sit Shedeur behind Rodgers? And I know Rodgers is maybe not the
he's not Mr. Chips. He's what you're saying?
Right.
He's not going to be sitting down and say, let me tell you everything I know. Although Jordan Love speaks very highly of Rodgers.
So maybe.
No, I do hear
think that
Shedeur could continue to drop tonight, and that's something that obviously we'd keep an eye on. I wouldn't, what if the Jets, right? I mean, it's just a 2-year deal for Justin Fields. They could bring him aboard.
That would be a lot of questions.
No, I know. Well, I mean, there's more than one New York team that can draft more people to give questions than just the Giants, sir.
And we saw Arizona move off of a first after 1 year. Remember Rosen and then went to Kyler. You can move off of a second pretty quick. So now, like the cost of this one is not prohibitive,
right?
So any team that's looking and they're like, well, let's see how it goes.
So let's say Cleveland does choose a quarterback with one of their first 2 selections and the first 4 selections tonight. Do you think it should be Shedeur?
Oh, there's no question.
No question.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes, he's substantially better than anybody else available.
That's still available.
Correct.
Other than him.
Correct.
Who would be somebody that would shock you if they did take him? Everybody keeps talking about how Milroe, a DJ called him a lottery ticket, like that you hit on him, it's mega millions, that his upside is through the roof.
Yes. Yes. I thought that his progress through 2023.
Yes.
I was like, okay, maybe there's something here. Remember, he played really poorly against Texas early. Texas beat them in Tuscaloosa, and Nick Saban benched him for a game against, I think it was South Florida. and he played some of the other guys, and then he came back in. And by the end of the year, leading into that, beat Georgia, who was undefeated, defending national champion in the SEC championship game, and then they ultimately lost that classic Rose Bowl to Michigan.
I was sitting in front of you that day.
Correct. It was one of your. I think that was the greatest day of your life. I don't want to.
Watching that happen with my wife and my children and my nephew sitting next to me. Right. Oh yeah, that was yeah.
It was close. Top 5.
And you were there with your beautiful family, photographing all of it.
It was bad. And I'll say this publicly because, like you're in the box and it's fun. And I had covered Michigan the entire year and know those guys really well. And so it's happening, and like Rich and I are like high-fiving, and Portnoy is in the
he was right next to us.
And like I give him a high five. And then I look back, and there's these people like recording with phones, and I was like,
But you were just celebrating with some Michigan
we were just having fun.
You were not, I can confirm, you were not initiating the high five.
No.
I was I would literally have high-fived anybody that was around me. No offense to anyone else, but I was that guy.
Last year, I'm in the same box for Ohio State, Oregon.
Yes.
Except the others in the box was like Neil Everett, Dan Fouts, so all Oregon people.
No.
So we sat there like this and watched the game.
Different vibe, huh?
My kids came to me like the middle of the third quarter, and they were like, "Hey, should we leave?"
By the way,
I was like, "Yeah, we might need to leave."
If kids are wondering about beating traffic, that's how much of a blowout it was. I'm sure
it was a blowout. I can't even remember where I started to what question I was trying.
No, I was talking about Milroe. Obviously.
Oh, that's right, Milroe. Let me get back to Milroe.
Sure.
So he had developed into that Rose Bowl game, and this last year, I thought Kalen DeBoer was a good fit for him.
Yeah.
Because Kalen had been with Michael Penix all the way back to Indiana. And Penix initially was a bit of a dual threat, had some of those knee injuries that we talked about last year. Mm-hmm. And then once he got him at Washington, he had developed into just an incredible downfield passer. Incredible downfield. As good of a downfield passer as we've had in the draft in a long time. And I thought that Jalen might reap the benefit of some of that development. But in 1 year, it was just too quick. I would have loved to have seen him have a second year with Kalen. Because it's a real projection right now from just the quarterback acumen. As far as the athletic ability, he is, outside of Travis, the guy that you can put on the field that's immediately the best athlete on the field. And so that's why he's a great lottery ticket, because if you see some of the development from a quarterback perspective, then you got something very special that every defense is going to be incredibly afraid of. But it's more of a projection. Shedeur can start tomorrow in the National Football League. Jalen Milroe cannot.
Catch the Rich Eisen Show live weekdays from 12 to 3 p.m. Eastern on Roku Sports Channel in the U.S.